Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa Haller.
And I'm Jason Anderson. Lisa and I are the programmers for the Shortcuts program here at the Toronto International Film Festival. And we are very happy to have you join us for a second of our chats with filmmakers from Shortcuts Program 4. And we're delighted to have them here and to talk about their films. And we are asking the filmmakers to introduce themselves and the name of the film they're presenting.
Hi, my name is Ariane Louis-Seize, and my film is Shooting Star.
Hi, my name is Renee Zhan. I'm the director of Oh Black Hole.
My name is Ian Bawa, and I made Strong Son.
Well, thank you so much, all of you, for being here today and sharing your films with us. We're so excited to chat about some of the details of your films. And to begin, we'd love to know the origin story, why you wanted to make this film. Why was this story so important to you to share? Ariane, let's start with you.
Yes, actually, it's an adaptation of a short story that I published in 2017 in a collective work about breakups. And I wanted to create a teenage character who lived her sexual awakening alongside of a mildly dysfunctional mother who is always looking to have the spotlights. And yes, I wanted to explore the thin line between what is acceptable or not, and like explore a complex family dynamics who allows me to touch gray areas and questioning ourselves about limits and family ties. And yes, I think that was the setup of the short story, and that what I wanted to explore. And the images of the film was in my head from the beginning, so I knew from the beginning that I wanted to adapt it to screen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Renee?
Yeah, so maybe a couple years ago, I started drawing this image of a woman who didn't have a face, who just had a dark smear for a head. And then I started thinking about her. Like, I didn't really know where that image came from, but I started sort of trying to figure out who she was and what her story was. And so that's where the idea for this film came from, that it was a woman who was turning into a black hole. And at the same time was thinking about, the inevitability of change and my fear of that. And I think a lot of my films come from out of things that I'm afraid of and trying to confront those things, and making films as a way of confronting them. And so then the film became about a woman who couldn't stand the passing of time, so turns into a black hole and sucks in the entire universe to keep everything inside her and keep everything the same. Out of context, I'm just realizing how insane that sounds, but hopefully everyone's seen the film. And yeah, I knew that I wanted to use music. I made the film at the National Film and Television School, where we have a lot of great resources, and the greatest resources are the other students. So I got to work with an amazing composer, Harry Brokenshaw, and we just kind of wanted to make, I wanted it to be led by music and lyrics as much as by visuals, and then see how these two things interact. And yeah, that's how we ended up with the film.
Great. Thank you so much. And then Ian.
My film started out as it actually was part of a one-take Super 8. And I was part of a one-take Super 8 festival, which is like where you shoot a film on Super 8 film and then edit within the camera. And I've been doing them like for the last 10 years as part of this competition in my city. And each one, like the last 3-4 years, I've done them based around my dad. And the first one was about my dad putting a turban on one of my very white friends. And then the second one was about my dad's feet, because he's an amputee and he has missing toes, and it's called Missing Toes. And there's this third one that I wanted to do. And I was going through a bad breakup, and I sat at a pub one day, like journaling, and I was writing just all these things. I cried in front of my dad. I got broken up on my birthday, and I was crying in front of my dad during my birthday dinner about this breakup. And he was telling me to be a man and not to cry and like be strong and all these things. And my dad's like, it's like, I hate all those things my dad would say to me. And I started writing them down, and I realized how like toxic they were to me, because like I've always been hard to share my emotion. So I started writing this like little speech about my dad, and it became a script of just like all my insecurities. And I basically wrote, yeah, an entire list of my insecurities. My legs are too skinny. I go to the gym and I work on my chest more than my back, and then I made a speech of my dad saying all these things to me, but saying it in a proud way. And that's what Strong Son became. It became a story about my relationship with my dad and all my awful insecurities.
Oh, it's amazing. It's funny to think about how, I mean, especially, I mean, Ariane can speak to this too, but certainly Renee and Ian with your films, how autobiographical they are, and yet also kind of just layers upon layers of kind of more unusual approaches. I mean, these are not, any kind of conventional sort of memoiristic, confessional kinds of films, but they are acutely personal at the same time. And Renee, maybe you want to speak to that first, because certainly I think all of your films, which we love, have kind of been these very personal in one level, but also like kind of absurd, and there's just layers upon layers going on as well.
Yeah, I think growing up, I was really, I've always been quite, I found it hard to express like you were saying, Ian, to sort of be open about, myself. And so I kind of see filmmaking as a way to do that, and to be, vulnerable and to connect with people who I wouldn't normally be comfortable doing so. But then at the same time, I guess all these layers, I kind of hide behind these layers of, abstraction and surrealism. So I guess it's like being open, but also kind of leaving it open enough that for the audience to interpret in their own way, and to maybe to take what they want from it, but also getting a bit of me out of it. I think that's how I've seen it. Yeah.
Well, it's so true. And I guess, Ian, speaking to that, because I think this is something that I thought, I mean, it was Lisa and I were like, is this, who are these? Like, because you've kind of created a sort of surrogate for, but it's also stuff that's obviously sort of very close to you at the same time.
Well, that is my dad in the film, which is like hilarious and awful at the same time. If you ever, yeah, my dad's a social media star. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I post about him because I lived at home for a very long time, up until I was 30, because my mom passed away when I was 20, and I stayed with my dad because his health was bad and he had barely any feet. And and I stay at his house like 3-4 times a week because he needs help. And I do laundry and I vacuum, and then I come back to my life. And so the film, I am not a person who is vulnerable. I have a hard time struggling. I get panic attacks instead of crying, and that is issues I deal with. And this film was me being vulnerable, and I didn't realize what I was doing when I was making it. And I made a film for me, and then I started showing it to people, and then I was hearing people got emotional. And the other truth is, my dad, when I did live at home, I would go to the gym all the time because I wanted to stay healthy, because I saw how awful my dad's body and life was. But he would come with me to the gym, and he would watch me at the gym because I need to get him out of the house. And that was like one of the places I was consistently going to. So he'd just come and watch me work out. And it was the weirdest thing if you think about it. And I think what I've learned from doing this film is that vulnerability trumps anything, and sharing and being truthful with your art or films get a response from people, which is awesome. So
great. Thank you. And I guess, and Ariane too, because obviously, I mean, this is we love your films, and there's always, I mean, obviously there's parts of you in all of your films. I mean, was this, and again, an example of that? I mean, is it the things that really about your own life and your experience that you wanted to express through this film, but maybe not, one-to-one direct kind of way?
I mean, there's some of me in the film, of course. I think I had a very upsetting, not childhood, but teenage years. But it's not about me at all. And I think it's more because I witnesses this kind of complex mother-daughter relationship around me a lot. But I don't have this kind of relationship with my own mother, but I don't know, it brings me and left me a lot of thinking about family ties and unconditional love, regardless of our flaws or weakness, and our mistakes. And yeah, I think when I wrote it, I was charged with all this questioning, and I think at some point I question a lot myself about being a mother by myself. So it's just, yeah, it's not based on my story at all, but those questioning is part of my reflection a lot in my work. And I think my main goal with this film was the authenticity of the story and the character. So I'm happy if people think it might be part of my life or my story, because that means it feels authentic. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your characters were so lived in. I think we found that you could really relate to each one of them so well. They're all such very round, complex characters, and the way that they interconnected was beautifully done. So do you want to talk a little bit, Ariane, about finding your cast and developing the type of intimacy that they had and that they needed between them, and anything that they brought to the film that kind of helped develop the story even more?
Yes, of course. That was the biggest challenge of the film. In my previous work, I had a big technical challenge, like working with a snake, with a dog, shooting underwater. But for this film, all my attention was on the casting and the acting. So it was a new directing challenge for me, because I wanted to to direct words, people who talk. And in my other films, people doesn't talk that much. So yeah, I did a lot of auditioning, and I started with the character of Chloe. And when I found her, I auditioned like maybe 40 young actresses. And after that, I tried to make match between energy, and I did a lot of rehearsal with them before to create this intimacy, this safe space between them and between me and them before the shoot. And so, but the three actors have already this very natural kind of acting. So it was, at the end, it was easy to direct them. Yes, it was a great challenge, but at the end it was kind of easy.
Yeah, they're all so incredible. So congratulations. Yeah, it's a much different focus for this particular film for you, considering your other work. So it really was striking to us. And Ian, do you want to talk about a little bit how it felt to direct your father in a film and how much leeway he gave you, or were you just capturing the moments that he had with this bodybuilder character that you had?
No, there was like definitely directing in a script and everything. My dad is he's in his 70s. He's an old man. He's in his 70s. He like even convincing him to do it. My dad has been in like every movie I've made, just as a BG or something. But yeah, as I said before, I've made a couple of Super 8s that were essentially about him, but he didn't have to do much. This one I was like, and his health has not been good lately, so it was like torturous trying to like, I'm like, I have to get you to this gym. We have to do this. Believe me, you'll be sitting most of the time. I actually wanted to do a scene where the bodybuilder is curling my dad, and I just didn't have the heart to even ask my dad or the bodybuilder. but but my dad, it's like, it was an argument the entire time. It wasn't like, hey, can you do this? He didn't understand me. And then I'd be like, don't look at the camera. But he looked at the camera, and then it made it more doc feel. So all these accidents happened. And, but my dad in general would be like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I'm like, Dad, it's a one take Super 8. Like, when I say rolling, you can't look at the camera or listen to me. Just focus on like sitting there and looking at the bodybuilder. And he'd forget half the time, to be super annoying. And the biggest thing was the bodybuilder is I keep calling him the better version of me, because he's like culturally like connected and speaks Hindi in the language that I don't speak. And anytime I direct and my dad didn't understand and get pissy at me, the bodybuilder Mandeep would turn to my dad and speak to him in Hindi, and then he'd understand. And then I was like, wow, I am so culturally inept to like be able to direct my father or tell my father what I want. Like, communication is lacking there, and it's really interesting. So, you know, was it a challenge? Yeah, but it's also like, it's like almost like shooting something with like any sort of family member. You're just like, rolling your eyes 90% of the time.
Hilarious too. And it's like, I was just thinking about sort of the idea of challenges. I mean, like, Renee, for your film, which I mean, it seems like certainly techniques that I haven't seen in one of your films before, the, you know, methodologies that are different. I mean, like, and it is this kind of amazing amalgam of these sort of things that you're doing. I mean, was it sort of a daunting, you know, challenge to be sort of doing all of this at once in the same film?
Yeah, definitely. It was a big, it felt like quite a big leap from my last one, because before this film, all my films have been made pretty much on my own in my bedroom. And in this film, I was directing a team of like 50 people. So I was constantly, you know, I became an animator because I didn't want to talk to anyone. So it was a big, yeah, it was a big step. But it was also really, that was also the best part of it was, you know, collaborating and sharing the experience with my friends and seeing it become also their film. And this is also my first stop motion film, which was a challenge. I just had no idea how much more complicated it is to be dealing, you know, it's closer to live action because you're dealing with real sets and real lights and gravity, and everything everything breaks, everything falls down. But yeah, it was definitely new, and it was something that I wanted to try all these different techniques in the film, to just because I was at school and I thought this is a time to explore and try things out and see if it can work together. But yes, it was a challenge. My next film, I'm moving to live action, which will be a new and different challenge. Working with actors is actually what I'm most nervous about, but also most excited about. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes.
It's fantastic. I mean, it's amazing to think about, just like, you know, I mean, just to see all of your films. I mean, even Ariane too, like and Ian as well. Like you're all. I mean, we've loved your work for a long time, and just to see all this freshness and all the sort of different things that you're doing in these films is really exciting. And Lisa, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, Renee, I think we can't let you go without you talking a little bit about the musical aspect of your film and how that came about. And I know it's a highlight for many, just and a surprise to see this musical element and some serious life lessons in your film as well. Some of my favorite quotes are now from your film. But if you want to speak a little bit more about your decision in the storytelling to include this musical aspect, that would be lovely.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so my previous film was Renee Paptoses was all done in spoken verse in like couplets. So it it seemed like the next step from that would be I thought it has to be a musical. I guess I really love musicals that shouldn't be musicals, like Dancer in the Dark, and that's one that really it's she's singing and dancing, but it's so heartbreaking, and so that kind of like those two things that didn't go together, that like edge, is something that I wanted to try out, and yeah, I mean, working with composer Harry and vocalist Emmy the Great and Lori Luxemburg, who's the voice of the Black Hole, and she has these she's an experimental opera singer, and she just her vocal range and the sounds she makes, and yeah, that really brought a lot to it. It was. I thought that one mistake I made was I thought that I could tell a bigger story if I through dialogue and through exposition by fitting a lot of words in, but I didn't realize that if those words are sung, then no one can pick up all the words. So that was something that we were kind of trying to work out, but I think it's okay. You get some, maybe you miss some, but overall I think it's more of an experience.
Amazing. And it sort of feels, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. Oh no, just one thing, similarity I noticed was we all used some voiceover.
That is very true. It's I mean, it is sort of something I hadn't noticed, but it's always nice to think about these sort of connections between the films that are, I mean, it's I mean, I was just thinking too about it's they're all films that feel very fresh, like I was saying to the directors themselves. And I mean, and I'm really curious about kind of, I mean, and Renee's already talking about sort of doing a sort of live action feature too, which is amazing. And I guess I want to hear from Ariane and Ian about kind of lessons they've learned from these films, maybe for them, in the process of making them, that they hope kind of they'll bring forward into the next project. Maybe Ariane, just sort of lessons.
Est-ce qu'on pourrait me traduire un peu? J'ai pas bien compris l'essence de la question. Je t'entends pas.
Charlotte's mute. So I knew I was going to ask one of those questions that's not really a question, and then Charlotte would have to step in.
I need help on this, please.
Yeah, Jason, maybe you should just reformulate your question so I can translate it. Yeah.
Well, two-part. What are the lessons you're bringing forward to your next project, and what is that next project?
Donc, c'est quoi les leçons que tu retiens dans ton expérience de tournage, et c'est quoi ton prochain projet?
Okay. All right. I'm working right now on a feature film. It's called Humanist Vampire Looking for a Suicidal Person. So it's a dark comedy, and it's very fun. I co-write it with a friend, and it's the first time I co-write something, and it brings me a lot of joy because it's I don't know, it's just more like less lonely. And I really like her way to her humor in the dialogue. So I think we are a good team together. And I think with Shooting Star, I learned to direct more than one person in alone with an animal. So I think I grew up in this experience like director. I feel I'm ready for this first feature, but it's a comedy, and I never direct comedy before, but it's kind of dark, atmospheric comedy. So I think I think it's gonna be okay. Yeah, and I'm writing another feature as well. It's called Cherry Blossom, and it's about a mother-daughter relationship as well. So I think I'm more in my main theme in this other feature.
Thank you. And Ian, you're always busy, always have films. I hope there's more.
Yeah. Well, in truth, like the response for this, even before like TIFF happened, just like I said, like showing it around to people, it was so positive, and I knew I had something special, but I didn't know what. In general, I was like, what is this world that I made? Because what I made, I'm just talking about my own life. And so I'm like, I want to make this bigger. So I am working on a feature of Strong Son, which is essentially about this bodybuilder who has to move back in with his dad after a breakup. And I was trying to figure out for a while what that story was. It was like, is this Little Miss Sunshine? The dad trains the son and they go on a road trip, or is it? And I was like, no, that's not the movie. And I was working with different ideas, and in general what I came to the conclusion is it's about male toxicity, and the idea that like there's a 10cc, a band from like the 80s. I don't know if you guys remember it. Yes, 10cc. They have a song called I can't remember the name of the song. It's their biggest hit, and there's a part of the song where it kind of breaks into a bridge, and it goes, big boys don't cry, big boys don't cry. And I heard it on the radio, and I was like, oh man, that is the theme of the movie. It's this idea that like there's this theme of men or should not be crying, or this idea that the people say that men need to be strong, show emotion. And this bodybuilder in this feature is going to be someone who has struggles showing his emotion. He hides it by working out all the time, building his muscle, and that's how he deals with his emotional anguish. And the dad isn't helping, and moving back home makes it worse. And that's what the feature will be about. To answer your other question, what I learned during Strong Son, honestly, I learned that I can be creative still. I have the capacity to actually like write truth, which is like kind of cool. I think as artists, like, I don't know, I'm sure all of us can relate. It's just like we go through it's being an artist is like being a little bit bipolar. You have days where you're just slow. You have days where you're high, where you're like, I'm the most creative genius in the world. And then those other days crash. And if COVID and this weird pandemic world that we're in, it made it worse, where I was like, am I creative still? Like I wasn't sure. I was questioning it a lot more. And even though I was creating things constantly, making little TikToks, videos, whatever, like I was making things constantly, I wasn't sure if it was anything was good. And this was a project I worked on during COVID. And I just focused my mind doing this because I live alone, and this was where all my energy went. And I learned that like, yeah, like I am still have the capacity to be creative, and it's nice when audiences respond to it, and you guys at TIFF respond to it.
Well, it's fantastic. Yeah, and it's a great place to end. Just that not ending on the compliment for us, because we don't want that to end, but just that the creativity is possible in circumstances that may be difficult or kind of sap your strength or your confidence, but there's something there to it. So, and again, just thank you all so much for your efforts here and all the time and energy and love you put into these films, because we very, very much appreciate them, and really happy to get the chance to show them. So thanks so much.